Hello and a very warm welcome to one and all present here. I am Laksh Mittal joining in from India and we have an amazing masterclass today planned for all of you. And this masterclass is brought to you by Recurrum. At Recurrum, our vision is very simple. We want to onboard a million of enthusiastic blockchain and Web3 users. And that is why we bring to you a one-of-a-kind masterclass today in the series Transitioning into Web3. The world is heading towards a more connected ecosystem, a system where um, maybe different areas, different industries are joining together to build something new. And at this folklore, Web3 is taking the lead. Web3 is all about communities, and through the power of decentralization, blockchain, and the secret sauce, you. It is time that we change the world and take it from Web2 and transition into Web3. But before we enter and start with the masterclass today, let me tell you about something what we're doing at Recordon. In simple words, if I have to keep, we help Web3 companies hire Web3 intellectuals, talents, and even professionals at Web3 events. Web3 is meant to be the new internet, an internet where a new technology basically, where everything is transparent, efficient, and in an autonomous system ecosystem. And this is where Recurrum steps in. We help people who want to transition from Web 2 to Web 3 by making them learn, network, and find opportunities at events in Web 3 companies. Today, we have almost 80 plus companies offering you a plethora of jobs and opportunities, internships, remote opportunities, contract based from all over the world. We are also offering NFT certificates, NFT minted certificates to all of you. So if you want to remember and keep a unique memory from today's event, drop in your wallet addresses in the discussion room on the Requiem login. If you're streaming this particular episode of Masterclass from any other channel, let it be YouTube, Twitter, or LinkedIn, okay, join the Requiem channel. Log on to Requiem on the website, make your ID, um, join this event, and on the discussion room, put in the chat your wallet addresses and take away a unique memory from today. We would also like to thank our sponsors, Unifarm, and our partners, Valist, for today's event. Now, as I've already spoken about everything that helps us to take to the next step, and that's introducing a speaker. Today, for our session, the speaker is a person who is a close friend which I recently made. And this person has been into tech, computers since always. Since a child, he has always been, very fond of computers, code. He even from what I've heard, he even did a business, while he was in high school and even when he was college. So before I tell more about him, it's you should know about him from his mouth. So let me welcome to you Zachary Pelkey from Valist, the CTO and co-founder. Zach. Hi, Zach.
So happy to be here.
Hi, Zach. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Things are really chugging along, and it's a beautiful day. I'm so happy to be here and talk with everyone. I'm so excited.
Definitely, I am super duper excited, and I have been loving the conversation we were having earlier about all the types of education that's going on in around here, plus how technology has advanced since years, even the AI related stuff we spoke about, right? So I'm very psyched and very excited about today's chat that we're going to have in front of everyone, the masterclass that you have brought on how Web3, like how metaverse can be revolutionized by gaming, correct? So before we get into all of these things, let's start with a simple question. Let's go into your background. Let us know more about you. What have you been doing? How did you start your journey? Okay, and how did you end up becoming and getting introduced to blockchain? Let's start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always kind of been like, as you said, like since I was a young kid, I've always been really into tech and computers and just honestly just like pushing the boundary, always kind of like been kind of a standout against even like authority and like centralized things. And it was kind of this like combination throughout my life of like wanting to push the boundaries and wanting to do things, whether it's, you know, AI or photography, machine learning, all of these different things. And I started coding probably around like 10 years ago as like a full stack developer. Went through high school just like doing a lot of coding and stuff like that. Entered into college and stuff. Started working at, you know, one of my first internships in college for a blockchain company in 2016.
Oh.
Yeah, doing full stack blockchain dev there. And it kind of just, it was like this transition of like, you know, I went from kind of pushing the boundaries in what I believed in and what I was doing in AI to then seeing like fintech and blockchain and just like the future of what, you know, decentralization and cryptography could do for the world. It's just, it was kind of like a no-brainer for me, just with everything I was passionate about and all of the development I had already been doing.
Right, awesome. No, like from what I understand, okay, you have been always around computers, always exploring, always pushing boundaries to understand more, right? And it is not like generic to almost everyone who is into, you know, working or who's a working professional. You know, most of the people just want to work and, you know, just, you know, complete the work and go back to their normal life. But, you know, I have, as much as I understand, you have been a person who has always been trying to push harder to do more, explore more, basically, right? So let's take, why don't you tell us, like, why have you been like that? Like, is it because, like, you have always wanted to, or because technology fascinates you? How did it come to this?
Yeah, so I really just think there's just some people just have this kind of like hacker ethos, hacker mentality. You feel it in these communities, and you just really feel it from people. But to be honest with you, they're like, I've always been great at coding and that kind of stuff. And like, you know, you get the question over and over again. People kind of say to you like, hey, like you're good at coding, you must be good at math, or you must be good at this.
Right.
And yeah, I've always said to people, I've always been like, no, I'm not really that good at math. And honestly, like, even going into college, like I really didn't know, even though I wrote a lot of code and I could take code from, you know, the internet and I could kind of script and I could make a little bit of my own code. You know, there was a point where I felt like, hey, maybe this isn't for me. Like maybe I can't do this as good as I would like to. And it's really only been because of having good communities that I've been a part of with great developers like we're doing right here, and just good people and really good teachers and mentors and master classes and that kind of thing, that it's like the more you code, the more you have these little click moments, and the more that like the things that didn't make sense start to make sense. And like sometimes you just have to sit there for hours and just stare at the code and just stare at the screen, and then these things, they start to click. And as long as you have good teachers and good mentors and good, it kind of drives you. It kind of pushes you to be like, wow, I can really understand this. And I think it's just this feedback loop of like constant, like kind of gratification in that, like, wow, I can understand things that I didn't think I could understand, and I can do things that I didn't think I can do, and I can continue to kind of push those boundaries.
No, awesome. Like you definitely, you know, have got a very good point ahead. Like let's say we know a skill that is definite, but you should be around people who can push you harder to do more, to do better, right? And that is why communities, building, you know, having a good professor or, you know, a good mentor also around you has been a very important, you know, checkpoint in everyone's, you know, life, and it should be also. And from what, like, both of us know, right, like Web3, metaverse, blockchain, everything is about communities. It's about more of collaboration than competition. Everyone wants to work together and, you know, build better. So like you mentioned, right, you started your first blockchain gig as an intern, right, and then you entered blockchain, right? So how was blockchain to you when you first interfaced it? Like when you were first interacting with it, what were the challenges you felt? How did you feel while using it, and what amused you?
Yeah. So I honestly, the biggest thing that really blew my mind, honestly, with not just, so I got involved around the ICO boom around 2016 when Ethereum was becoming really big on the scene. And
Okay.
blockchain was even like one thing to me. Like I had heard of Bitcoin and, you can use these blockchains to have a digital ledger and verify that this person sent this person this amount and that kind of thing. And it's this big decentralized ledger that no one can really manipulate. And that was really cool to me, that idea of like value and value transfer. And I feel like a
Okay.
lot of that has gotten carried further now with Ethereum. It's not just about money value, it's about the internet of value. It's now we have this world computer, this world state machine that can do basically any arbitrary computation that any computer can do to now
Hmm.
enforce any sort of contract with any sort of value between any number of
Right.
individuals. So I just really thought, to me, that was like the most inspiring part of the technology, was just that we can take this value that extends beyond money and apply it even to things like video games, like we're going to talk about
Right.
today. I would,
Exactly.
yeah, I would just say the biggest challenge or like blocker that I realized is that we're so early right now. I think for
Exactly.
like starters, like we're like before the internet was the internet kind of thing. So it's like the tooling around a lot of things has been really immature for a long time, and I really think that it's not until maybe even this year that
Right.
we have all these amazing frameworks. We have Foundry, we have Hard Hat, we have Ganache. Obviously, Ganache has been around for a little bit, but all these things
We
that
have
now,
Polygon.
yeah, Polygon. Polygon is so, I love Polygon. It just makes it
Yeah.
so much Morales, even just to keep shouting out a bunch of companies and
Right.
SDKs, ChainSave. We have all these amazing companies for the first time building all these things that give everyday developers the ability to interact
To
with
explore
these
more.
networks.
Exactly. No, definitely. Somewhere, I very much agree to you on all points that you said. Right. We are in an industry which is max to max a decade old. Right. And if I even say a decade old, I would not totally do justice to it, because what I feel is people were into this to only earn money in the beginning, but now they have entered into developing the whole projects. Now protocols are coming, now value is getting added, right? So somewhere I believe, definitely not now, but maybe in a few years we'll be at a stage where it is acceptable, like the whole blockchain technology is acceptable in various industries, not only finance and basically economy related, right? But various other industries like gaming, even healthcare, and even military, right? So let's go ahead with that. Like, why don't we start with today's understanding? Like today we're talking about how Web3 can revolutionize gaming, right? So what is the first thing that comes to your mind when we get this question? Like, how can we actually do it?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the biggest things to understand, for a lot of people, it's kind of like the dirty elephant in the room too, is that not everything is decentralized.
Oh,
I,
yes.
and I do think you know, Web3 is one thing, and I think decentralization is
Is
another
another
thing.
thing,
And
right?
obviously, decentralization is a cornerstone of the pivot towards Web3. We're moving to these peer-to-peer systems. We're cutting out the middlemen. We have things like user-centric data ownership, where a user has control of their own data and brings their own data. But all that being said, I don't think, there are still some things, especially for the next couple decades, that require
Exactly.
centralization. Like you're going to need centralization for some things. And I think this still comes into play, especially with gaming, where you can't exactly decentralize a game server right now. Like a game server still has to have a real-time WebSocket connection and all of these things for these real-time players that doesn't even fit the model of, you know, a block time, because a user is not going to wait a couple seconds for reconciliation to happen with like data. They're gonna, you know, they're gonna want that to happen within hundreds of a millisecond, especially if I'm playing like an FPS game or something like that. So I think that's where having these primitives and trusted oracles and these services, at least, that work as trusted oracles that you can plug your game servers into, so that now you have a reconciliation period to where if I have a high score or if I have any of these pieces of game state, you know, that's happening on a centralized game client maybe originally, or maybe some kind of peer-to-peer client, probably still using some kind of server though, but then that data gets taken and reconciled on chain so that it's still this interoperable source of truth. And I think that's the core piece, is that you know, the data that we put in these digital ledgers is meant to be that shared source of truth. But how it gets there, how we actually get there, could be different methodologies, and those aren't always completely decentralized. Gaming, you still need a game server, and you still need nice APIs and primitives so that these game developers don't have to be a computer scientist to create a game.
No, right, like today only I learned something new, which I'm, you know, like is into, you know, on this very same context, like you said. What I understood from that is not all Web3 products need to be decentralized. Okay. Decentralization is a, you know, it's like it's a structure. Okay. It's not a technology, or it's not, you know, something new. It's a structure. It's a feeling. Like I am decentralized. What does that mean? Like no one owns anything that I want. It's basically like that. Like no one has authority over me. That is decentralization. Okay, so that is a structure which many Web3 companies still need to understand, that decentralization cannot happen fully. It is a progressive game, but it can only happen with, you know, time. And there is also one, you know, some quote which I read, which says centralization is actually very necessary to maintain, you know, the math, basically to maintain the equation. So what do you say about that?
So yeah, I think at the end of the day, that I think that's still where a lot of the digital signatures come in, and a lot of these things where we can have verifiable math behind these user interactions that happen, and we can have verifiable pieces of code that are able to say user A signed off with his private key that he did this, user B signed off on this, that they did this, and then it's all just verifiable now. Like that's the whole thing, is that, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the most decentralized all of the time, especially because I don't have to trust. I can still verify that a given person wrote a given piece of state to a given place. And then that's even in the smart contract, where you would say, like, do they have authority to do this? Do they have authority to do that? And we can create a smart contract with any arbitrary implementation that could do really anything like that. And, you know, I think there's a big difference between, you know, you hear people talk about decentralization, but there's not just decentralization on the protocol level, there's decentralization on the governance level. So it's like, how decentralized is my governance structure versus how decentralized is that underlying protocol that's underpinning that governance structure. So it's kind of a multifaceted levels of decentralization.
Right, it has different layers basically. It cannot be fully decentralized like we spoke, right? No, definitely, I totally agree to that. But let's talk about, you know, today's topic as well, right? So how do you think, like, you know, gaming industry has been, you know, because it has always been coming with new and new technologies, right? And now with the upcoming, you know, revolution of blockchain, how do you think that changes the gaming industry?
Yeah, so first off, I just want to say, you know, like the gaming industry is huge, like bigger than movies, bigger than like anything. Like the gaming is becoming the new movies, especially when you look at the different like market capitalization of all these things and all these companies. Like it's just one of the most massive markets that exists in the world today, and people want increasingly interactive content. They want to be in the metaverse. They want to have this community interaction and these different interactions and these things, and all of that is done through these games and through all of these different like metaverse applications and things. But the part that I really feel like takes us to the next level now with blockchain is that idea of ownership. Right now, the ownership of all of these games is siloed to the publishers. Even companies like Steam take 30% of the revenue from developers, and that's if you're not already with a different publisher before that's publishing you on Steam, and they're taking a cut. And so you have all these people coming in, they're taking their cuts, and then Steam is coming in at the end of it, and they're taking 30% of your revenue, and then Steam is doing very little to take any of that money and reinvest it in new projects and reinvest it in the community. Like obviously Steam has a lot of cool community features. They have forums, they have stuff like that. But you know, a big part of Web3 is funding the commons. Like we hear that all the time about like public goods funding and reinvesting. The idea of ownership with Web3 is that the stakeholders in my protocol, the stakeholders, the users of my game, the people that are actually using the protocol and these things are the biggest owners of the thing and the biggest aggregators of value of the ecosystem that they are contributing to. And so it can be the exact same way with these games. The more that you know, develop a game or play a game or contribute in some way to the ecosystem of this game, you're now able to use blockchain to take away real value from that before, as a user or as a developer, you know, it was just these centralized middlemen kind of keeping all that value for themselves. But now, kind of like you said earlier, now we're all building together and we're all making it better together, and we all get that value that we kind of bring to the table and kind of accrue together.
No, definitely. You know, because of this only, I feel there will be a very huge jump in how people understand gaming as well. Because see, I am not a game developer. I play games, so as a person, I know it takes a lot of effort to do it, right? And when you see people taking, you know, chunks and bites from your effort, right? Let it be any sort of cut or any sort of percentage out of that, it doesn't feel great, right? And that is where, you know, decentralization can help because it helps you monetize yourself better, right? So with that, let's do what? Let's start with your, the whole preparation that you've done around slides and the knowledge that you are going to share today. Okay, let's start with that and let us see how you're going to teach how Web3 is going to be revolutionized for gaming. Let's start with that, shall we?
Awesome. Yeah, let's jump in. Totally.
Okay, awesome. Let's start with that. You can start sharing your screen now.
Cool. Let's jump into it. So I am just going to drop this in the stream chat as well, for anybody that might want to follow along. I have a couple different URLs here. So here is the repo, and I think you guys might be able to add these to the public chat for me. Cool. So yeah, let's jump into it. So these are kind of a little bit of a contrived example here. You know, they say use the right tool for the job, but you know, I'm someone that really likes to play around a lot and you know, a lot of things are really moving more towards like Unity web games and stuff like that. But a really awesome framework that I really like for HTML5 canvas games is actually called Phaser. And so Phaser is actually doing a lot of really awesome, shout out to Phaser, a bunch of really awesome work around, you know, Web3 gaming and just like decentralized kind of gaming with web games and stuff like that. So I've thrown together a quick web game example for everyone here that uses native on-chain kind of like DRM to pull a skin for your game. And so I bootstrapped this from the Phaser 3 roll-up TypeScript demo. So this is just like a standard Phaser app that I threw into a Next.js app. And then of course, I had to import our Valist SDK just to show you guys a little bit of goodies around that and just around, you know, our Valist NFT licenses and that kind of thing, and how you could kind of pull assets and things from that. So yeah, this example that I'm going to be showing today just has TypeScript, Phaser.js, Next.js, WAGMI, and then RainbowKit. I'll also just add, so Next.js is a front-end framework for developing, well, full stack actually, sorry, not just front end, but a full stack framework for developing React applications. It's really nice. If you haven't seen it, I would totally say anybody that's watching this, check it out. Next.js is one of the coolest, easiest ways for developing static React apps. They have all this amazing stuff like API routes and just so many like goodies, server-side rendering, like dynamic server-side rendering. It's really awesome. For this example, we disabled server-side rendering though because of the canvas elements, but I'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're also using WAGMI. So WAGMI is like a new up-and-comer in the Web3 space, but it's like it blew up, like everybody is using it. So WAGMI is basically a React hooks wrapper around Ethers.js. So Ethers.js also getting like really popular. It's just another competitor to like Web3.js and those other like Web3 frameworks that kind of let you interact with a key and then call RPC gateways and interact with contracts and really just do like anything. So WAGMI is just going to be a really cool way for us to easily talk to the chain via RPC and talk to a bunch of contracts and do some cool Web3 stuff. And then for those of you that haven't heard of it, RainbowKit is, it's made by Rainbow Wallet. It's their front-end UI kit for kind of just like embedding a quick like wallet connect button. Well, wallet connect, MetaMask, any of the different providers that you would want to connect to your application. RainbowKit is just built on top of WAGMI. It uses WAGMI behind the scenes with the WAGMI provider, and then exposes a wallet directly to your application. So anybody that's following along here can just go to code on this, and then you can git clone the HTTPS endpoint on this, or you can download the zip and unzip it if you want to follow along. I'm going to use VS Code for this demo. Same thing, like if you haven't heard of VS Code, if you're a new up-and-coming programmer, please check out VS Code. I use it for all my daily development. It makes it so easy. You have really awesome features, like you can just directly see all of the Git tree kind of stuff. You can push, you can commit directly from the GUI on this. It makes it so unbelievably easy. You have like searching, stuff like that. It integrates with like Docker containers, any databases. Just really, really great IDE. I love VS Code. But cool. So let's kind of just jump into it. I'm just gonna minimize everything here, and then I'm just gonna go from the bottom of the file tree here and just kind of talk about a little bit about these files in this project, and then by the end of this, we will have a full HTML5 canvas game that is connected directly to the blockchain and able to pull our NFT game license that will render our game skin directly in our browser. So the first file we have here in our standard Next.js project is a tsconfig file. So I use TypeScript for all of my projects. If you're a beginner, I would recommend probably just start with like JavaScript or something like that. Our Next.js example that I dropped in the chat is actually just in vanilla JavaScript. So for anybody that's a little confused, you can totally look at the regular JavaScript version of this project, and it should be a little bit easier to understand. But TypeScript is just really nice. Would totally recommend it. It's just a superset of JavaScript that adds some things like types and interfaces and stuff like that, that just makes your code a lot easier to find errors and kind of like debug and just even maintain general code. But so every TypeScript project normally has a tsconfig file. This is just the default tsconfig that comes with Next.js. So I'm not really going to talk too much about that. Of course, we have our package.json file because this is an NPM project. You can also use Yarn with Next.js if you want to. This really even should just be compatible with Yarn with the current package.json file. If you wanted to install and bootstrap using Yarn, you can totally do that. I just use NPM though. So with the Next.js project, we just have some basic commands here. We have dev, build, start, lint. And so this is the really cool part about, again, if you're like a newer developer just getting into development, there are two big things that people tend to forget as a developer, and that's testing and linting. And these are like two of the single most important things you could do just to save yourself time as a developer, is to lint your code so that it's clean, especially if you're collaborating with people, and then test your code, of course, so that, you know, instead of sitting there and manually clicking a button 8 times, you know, you write a test that clicks the button like 1,000 times or something like that. And so we're able to kind of automate. And so this idea of like testing and linting is built into Next.js from the ground up, so that you just already have kind of like a basic pipeline of, oh, I can run next lint to lint my app, or I can run test to kind of test it. And I don't have a testing reference here because, you know, I've removed it for this demo because I don't want to confuse anybody, but the linting is built in. It uses ESLint. So here I just have my ESLint file. It just has the Next.js core ESLint. And so what that just means is that Next.js has their own pre-configured set of rules for how you should write your code. And this can be really helpful because if you have something like a use effect in React or something, and you forget to put the dependencies in the use effect, they even have some really cool nuanced linting rules that will help you as a beginner to kind of spin up a little bit on that. So here are just the dependencies we're going to use. We're going to use the Rainbow Kit, the Valist SDK, Ethers, Next, Phaser, React DOM, WAGME. And so then we have this next config file. There's a couple really core pieces here, and you'll see this in the README that I have here as well for the Next.js example. One of the big core things that, since we want to serve this game in a decentralized way from the gateway, we have to set an asset prefix so that our JavaScript app, our Next.js app, knows what the actual paths are of where we are going to serve these files. So the way we do that is we just say asset prefix / to just say, you know, it's the current path, like use the current path. So You'll see that reflected here. I've added that to my next config for that asset prefix to make this IPFS compatible. And then we can kind of just ignore this Webpack stuff here. This is in any of our bootstrapped projects on any of these repos, because we have some dependencies like IPFS that can cause a little bit of problems with like their server side rendering, kind of like on the server side. So basic types for Next.js, that kind of just stays the same. And so then we have these two files at the root of our pages. So the way that Next.js works, it's really amazing. So normally when you are creating a React project, you would have to create a router.json file or router.js file, or router.ts file, and import React router to do routing. And so that way when I go to like /blog/1, and so then it shows like blog post 1 or something like that, I would set up the routes for that, and I'd have to configure a whole kind of like routing tree, router structure for that. And so Next.js removes that completely. So they have the idea of basically just having these component-based routes where you have your pages folder, and anything that I name in my pages folder becomes the route for that page. So in the case of our index page, we can just call it index, and this will be our core /route, that when I just go to localhost 3000 / this is what shows up. So I'll come back to that in a minute, but something I want to really touch on really quick is we also have this idea of an _app file in Next.js. So in programming, applications tend to have, they call it the entry point. And so this is the first point by which the process is executed, and that code is executed from that entry point. And in Next.js, the entry point is this _app file. So this is where we would put any context, any global state that we're going to pass as props. Anything that gets passed to our entire app globally, we want to put in this kind of _app entry point file. So this is actually where we are going to do some of our wallet configuration. And so I can just kind of go over this really quickly, but shout out to RainbowKit for providing such an awesome configurable, wallet connecting library here. And then, shout out to WAGMI too for just being an awesome React hook library. So there's a couple things we want to import here from WAGMI. We're going to import our chains. So WAGMI is really cool because by default, they support like a lot of the major chains. So for this demo, we're going to be using Polygon, but as you can see, it also has types for mainnet, Ropsten, Rinkeby, like all the major Ethereum test nets, Optimism. So we have a layer 2 in there, and just all of these things. And so we're going to import chains so that we have access to knowing like what all these chain IDs are, kind of what everything is. And then we have this configure chains function where we're actually going to configure our chains. We have create client for creating the WAGMI client. And then we have WAGMI config for actually just a helper for that basic WAGMI config. So the first thing we do is we want to call our configure chains function, and then we're going to pass our chains into this. So this will be the chains that we actually want to render, that they can switch between in our application. And so for this one, I'm going to pass in chain.polygon to use Polygon, and then I'm going to use the public provider from WAGMI, which is just going to use their public RPC endpoint for that provider. So the next thing we have to do is call the get default wallets from RainbowKit to actually pass these chains in for those wallets. And then, we can name our app whatever we want. We could just say like Web3 game here. And so now we have the name of our app in RainbowKit, and we have the chains from WAGMI that is actually going to be using. And so this chains just kind of acts as a pointer to those different chains. And so now that we have our chains and our basic RainbowKit configured, we have to actually create our WAGMI client so that we can pass it into the provider. Again, just like a little bit of background. Sorry, there's a lot of concepts going here. But React has the idea of context. So contexts are a way to create a provider that is then consumed by any other kind of components in your app to globally expose state to your React app. So in the case of our Web3 game example, we need global state for WAGMI so that we can call WAGMI to get any of our kind of like hooks for whether it's like account state, contract state, signer state, all of these different things that we might interact with the chain. And then we need RainbowKit provider. And so this is just going to provide the actual provider to our wallet that we are actually using. So this is like all of those RPC gateways and chains. And so by adding both of these providers here, they will now be globally exposed to the rest of our app. And so this is all just kind of the basic config for just using a RainbowKit app. And this might seem like it's a lot, but comparative to the amount of code you would actually have to write yourself here, this is actually like really, really awesome that like we're doing a lot here. We have a multi-chain application that can interact with the blockchain and has React hooks kind of right out of the gate. So now let's take a look at how we can actually apply this in our application here. So before I go back to this index though, I'm just gonna show a few of the utility things kind of with Phaser.js. This is just some very basic boilerplate from Phaser.js. This is right from their Phaser example. So by default, we need to set our Phaser config for the game. So I'm going to set this type to auto. I'm setting the width and the height to the just window.innerWidth.inner height. And so this will take the browser window's height and width, and this is going to bind our canvas element in JavaScript to being that initial size of the window when it loads. And so then I can just set some basic things here, like background color. I think this background color is really just like a baby blue kind of basic color. Just our parent element for the canvas, we're just going to call that game. We're going to need a basic physics engine that we're going to use from Phaser. So we can just set the physics config for that. We could just set that to the default arcade physics. So it's just this kind of like 2D side scroller kind of, if you think of like Mario or something like that, just basic like arcade kind of physics around the screen. And then we can just set our scaling. So we're just going to do fit again so that it should size to the screen, but we just want to make sure it fits. And then auto scale center is just set to center so that if for some reason they do resize the window after the initial sizing, it'll continue to kind of just like size to the window. So that's the basic Phaser object. Now, of course, our game is going to have a player. So we want to define a little bit of this player logic. And so just to go through this, phaser is really cool because it has these phaser input keys that you can just call. So everything that I do in phaser is I create classes for it because phaser has some really awesome classes, but you can use normal JavaScript functions, prototyping, like if you want to go about this kind of a different way. But this is really just what made sense to me. So this was kind of what I threw in the example. So here we have our player class that we are going to import. And this player class just extends the phaser physics arcade sprite. And inside this, we have some class attributes just called left, right, up, down, and then speed for like the number of our player's speed for how fast it's going to move across the screen. So the first thing we're going to do is when we create a new instance of this player class, we have our constructor that accepts a scene and XY coordinates for where our player is going to be on the screen. And then, of course, our player, we're just going to call them player. So we can take this scene object that we pass in, and we're going to call .add existing on it. And then we're just going to pass in this. We're going to pass in the entire player instance. We're going to add it to the physics. And then we're going to set collider world bounds on this. So what this is going to do is this is going to, we have our world bounds, which fit to the screen. It's just fitting our default grid, which we made our default size in the config. And it's going to make it so that the user cannot leave the screen. We're basically making it so that there's collider bounds around the whole screen. So now, just for the movement of our user, because the way that a lot of these game frameworks, the way that like all of them basically work in like computer graphics or like WebGL, all of these things is that you have the idea of an event loop. So it's a loop that's constantly just looping in the background. And then every time it loops is another frame update. So if you have a game that's, you know, it's updating at 60 FPS, it's updating those frames 60 times per second. It's looping 60 times per second. So that's exactly what we're doing here, is we're just saying in this pre-update, every time there's a pre-update with the next loop, update the coordinates based on this. So we're binding all of these left, right, up, down speed types now to the scene input key add. And then you'll see I'm using A, D, W, and S as my keys, just like standard movement like Minecraft or any of these other games. And then in my pre-update, when it's actually rendering the next screen, we're going to update the direction that the user is moving. So if this dot left dot is down, this dot x minus equals this dot speed. So here we're just taking the speed factor and removing that from the coordinates. So if a loop happens and they moved left, we're going to update their coordinates by 5 to the x, to the left. And if they move right, we're going to update their coordinates plus equals 5 to the right. So, you know, if you're going left, you're going down on the x. And if you're going right, you're going up on the x. And then if you're going down, you're going down on the y. And if you're going up on the y. So it's just basic movement here and basic updating the coordinates of this. But this is super powerful because now we have a guy on our canvas and we can move this player around the screen. So now this is basically all the phaser config that we need to kind of get our application going with phaser. But now let's add our blockchain checks to the game. We kind of need a way to pull data from the chain and render it in our game. So in the case of this game, we're going to link this game to an NFT so that when I play the game, it'll render my NFT skin on my player based on my wallet address and the NFT that I own. Again, this comes back to this idea of ownership, where if I even buy maybe an NFT in one game, if I buy a skin or an item in one game, I can write code in many of my other games to be able to import that same item or that same skin that I unlocked or I bought or I earned into any other game, as long as they support me having the ability to import certain types of assets. And this is really cool because now we can even, from an interoperability standpoint, like we can even create games that are essentially interoperable with each other, where I play one game and I win a bunch of items and I can take those items to another game in the series, like if there's a sequel game or something like that. But so let's take a look at how this is actually done. And this is a very contrived example, but I think it really highlights in like a really simplistic way, you know, the powerfulness here of like what we can do, how we can actually take these on-chain assets and embed them in a, you know, even a basic web game kind of thing. So I've created this component called create game, and we'll take a look at that in a second. But a really core part to note here is that, again, back to that Next.js server-side rendering, Next.js is really big on server-side rendering. And normally it's a really great feature for a lot of things, but it's not a great feature for rendering a canvas element because our server-side does not have a canvas. So we would have to emulate the DOM on the server side and write a bunch of code to do that, and just some stuff that is much outside the scope of this example. So for this example, we're actually going to use a dynamic import here to disable server-side rendering. And if you're watching this and you're really excited about the phaser example, this is one of the biggest pieces to remember, is that if you're using Next.js, if you're using Gatsby, you got to disable that server-side rendering or you're going to have a lot of problems. And Phaser has some really good guides on this, but this line here is basically what it boils down to. We just have our dynamic import from Next.js. We pass our arrow function with our import into that. And then we pass this options object that has SSR set to false. And so this is going to disable the server-side rendering for our canvas component here. Cool. So now that we are on our index page, obviously we're talking to the blockchain. The first thing that we need to do is to connect to our account. So WAGMI has a really awesome hook for this. It's just called use account. And so you can see right here from WAGMI, I'm just importing use account from WAGMI. And so right away, this is just going to give me my account when this code loads. And then I can use that account to check some other things like, does this account have the proper token balance, or what is the account address so that I can display it to the user, kind of thing. So then we have some other state here. So we need to have a little bit of game state here. So our game is going to have a menu. So by default, we want to show the menu. So we're going to set this to true. And this is just a Boolean. We have our token balance. So before they are able to play the game, we want to make sure that they have the appropriate token balance to actually be able to play the game. And if their token balance is 0, then they're not able to play it because they don't have the license, they don't have the NFT, they don't have the skin for their user to be able to play. And so for this example, we are going to take all that data for what their skin is, and any other metadata from the project metadata on Valist. And again, this is like a very contrived example. You wouldn't typically use this part of the Valist API for this per se. You would just use it more for token gating than a skin. But I just thought this would be a really awesome example of how we can actually pool an NFT that has JSON metadata on IPFS, and we can check the user's token balance to pool that NFT and pull that metadata for the user's skin. So I have this project meta type here. And so this will just have an image and some of the data in it that we need. And so then we have our JSON RPC provider. Again, we're just using polygonrpc.com for this. That's just like a public gateway. Really awesome, pretty reliable out of all the Polygon gateways. Big shout out to them. Would really recommend. And so we're going to take this provider and we are going to pass this into our Valist client. And so this is just so that when the app initially loads, we have a read-only provider that we can use to check a given token balance on the app. And so then we just have this really ease of use Boolean here where we're going to say if the balance from state is equal to 0, then that means they don't have a token. So no balance, no token. If you do have a balance, that means you do have the token. You can play the game. And so this is pretty much just our core state of how this basic game is going to authenticate and show the menu to you. So now we have our first use effect. So you'll see from the dependencies array here that this use effect is going to run when our address is ready to go. So now we've connected to the chain, we have our RPC, we have our wallet, whether it's from MetaMask or Wallet Connect. That is our wallet is returning a signer to us that has an address, and we need to take that address and we need to do some of the stuff that we talked about. So I have this check here that if address is ready. So if address changes and address is ready, we want to start doing some stuff. And so this is where our Valist stuff comes in. And so the Valist SDK, you guys can check it out, npm install at valist/SDK. You can see my import for this is right up here, right here. And I'm just getting the Valist read-only client. I'm importing the generate ID function, and I am taking the project meta type that I am using from this. So in Valist, all of the queries to the blockchain are done via this project ID or this account ID. You can think of the project ID or the account ID as kind of like a unique address that represents either your account or a given project. And again, this just comes back to like verifiability. Like you can take this hash of this ID and you can verify like, yes, this is the correct account. Yes, this is the correct project. And so to be collision resistant, because Valist, of course, is cross-chain interoperable, we basically embed the chain ID into the account ID. So the account that I'm going to generate is called WebGame, and that account is on Polygon. So I'm going to use the 137 chain ID to generate that account ID on that chain. And then once I have that account ID, I can take that account ID and combine that with the string for what my project is called. So for this project, I am doing WebGame/game. And so then I get both of these respective IDs back. And then now that I have the IDs, I have my address, I have my project ID, and I can get the product balance for this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call valist.getProductBalance. And for this address that I'm passing in for this given user, it is going to check and ask the blockchain, does this person have access to this game? Do they own this NFT? Do they own a copy of this game? And so I call out to that call, and it's going to return. I'm using .thens here as opposed to async await, just because the way you have to wrap it a little more in the use effect and the way the dependencies work, it just it's actually a little bit cleaner looking, in my opinion, this way with the .thens, and I really think it just kind of emphasizes what's happening here. So we fire off this async request to get the product balance, and so then this returns a balance here that we can then, when this is ready, we are going to call that set balance value and set that balance. And then the next thing we're going to do, still within the same conditional here, when our address is ready, we also want to pull the project meta to actually be able to get our skin from the NFT metadata of this given NFT. So we're checking, do they own it? And if they own it, what skin do they own? So now I just have a couple little helper functions here, very basic. Again, this is a very contrived example. This is not very secure for your game. Like, somebody could pretty easily bypass this, but this again is just kind of emphasizing how we can use the blockchain to do these kind of signature checks for whether or not they have ownership of this game. So I just have two helper functions here. One is called play full. So you click the button, it lets you play the full version of the game. And then we have play guest, which just lets you play like a guest version of the game without the skin. And for this example, we're not even going to use play guest just because we want this to be token gated. We want this to be a full token gated example. So this is it. This is the core of our DOM code. So this is the basic HTML that's going to get rendered for our menu and for all of our things. And so in this return of our index, we just have a div at the root of your return statements. You always have to have one root node. So for us, it's just a basic div. And then we just have a basic inline conditional here that basically just says, you know, if show menu is true, render the page for this content. Render the menu. If show menu is true, we want to render the menu. And so our menu just has some basic styles, and it has a message that says, welcome to the Web3 game. And then we have our play button. And so the core logic in our play button here is that when somebody clicks this play button, play full, it's going to call this code that if they do not have a token, if there is not no token, sorry, that's a little confusing there, but if it's not no token, which means, you know, we negate it. So if they have a token, then we want to start playing the game. We want to set show menu to false, and we want to enter into some basic game state. And so then for this button, again, just some basic styling, but our button has some content here in it. So by default, it's going to say play, but then we just have a basic ternary here where if you do not have a token, so back to this no token value, then the button is going to say no token found. But if we do have a token, then it's going to say, you know, just nothing. It's just going to say play. And so then there's just some basic other boilerplate here that we need. We just need our connect button. So the connect button is just imported from Rainbow Kit. It's just the default connect button. And then we're just going to render this in the top screen. You know, we don't want it to be like interfering with the user at all or anything like that. So we're going to put it at the top of the screen, and we're just going to say top 20, right 20. So that it's just kind of in that top right-hand corner there. And so then we just have our final piece of code here where project meta.image and create game. So basically what this is saying is that if we have project meta.image, then we want to render the create game component with the canvas, and we're going to pass our skin, which is the image from our NFT metadata. We're going to take the image from that, and we're going to pass that to our canvas element to render our player's skin. And for anybody that's a little confused about these question marks, this is back to like TypeScript is amazing. So normally you'd have to write like project meta and project meta.image, and you'd have to have this whole like nested interaction because you want to make sure that that attribute exists on that object that you're accessing. But this is actually called like a type guard, where now this, I don't have to do that. I can just have this more shorthand project meta type guard.image. And if it is not available, it'll just return null, and then this won't render the conditional at all. But so let's take a look at our create game element really quick. And then I'll show you guys the live demo of this. So here is our create game component. We just have the skin prop coming in that we passed in. And then we just have all of our logic in this use effect. And the reason we have all of our logic in this use effect is because when React loads, by default, window is not available until the the DOM is ready, the components mount. Like in React, you have this idea of the component lifecycle, and before hooks, we used functional components, or sorry, class-based components, and you had the component lifecycle, and it was like component did mount and that kind of thing. Now it's all just use effects. So with this use effect, this code doesn't run until window is available to actually create the canvas element. So this is the main reason we're putting all of this in here. And so then our canvas element just has a game class in it where we have our basic game scene. Again, we have our preload. And so in our preload, we're going to load any images that we need for the game. So this is where we have our URL to our IPFS gateway that gets passed in to actually render our skin during the preload. And so this will load that image into memory from the request. And then there's just our create, which actually, this is the lifecycle function in, or method in Phaser that will render our player to the screen. So we're just going to create a new instance of our player class. And remember, this was the game scene. So this is the game scene class that we're creating, phaser.game. And then we're passing that instance into the player so that it can add the player to the scene and do some stuff like that. And then we have our initial XY coordinates for the player. So in this case, our player is going to start at 200, 200 on the canvas. And then we're just going to call this.add existing player right here as well. And so load game is just a super simple function in this that we want to make sure gets called when this initially loads. That just does new phaser.game. And what this does is we're just adding the scene and that basic phaser config that we talked about all the way in the beginning. And so this loads, we load the game, everything loads, and it's a happy day. So this is the complete structure, and I have about 5 minutes left here of our game. And so I'm just going to do a quick npm run build just to show you this. If we build our game, it is going to build all of this to a folder called our out folder. And so this has our static index.html. This has all of our other little elements and assets and kind of like all of the things that we need in here to upload to kind of play our game in the web. So now if I switch back to my browser, I have some funny little demo screenshots here. These are just all my NFTs. This is my favorite one, my Crypto Coven. Shout out to Crypto Coven. But if I check my versions, you'll see that I actually uploaded 2 previous versions here. And just to show you this, if I click launch, it'll load up. And this was the Web3 game that we just built. So it's a very simple game, but you can see here's my Rainbow Kit balance. So this is the Rainbow Kit provider and all the WAGMI stuff that we configured with the chain. And so we configured it with Polygon. So it says Matic. And then here's my address. It's connecting directly from MetaMask. If I want to disconnect and reconnect to MetaMask, I can even do that. And then you'll see I already own this token because I used a Valist project where I already owned one of those tokens. I'll show you how I bought that token in like a quick second here. But since I already own this token, the button just says play. It doesn't say no token. It says play. And so if we click that, you'll see it actually loaded my little guy, my little game skin directly from the blockchain. So now I took this NFT that I bought that had an image associated with it, and it pulled it live from the chain into this game demo. And so just to show you guys a bit about what that looks like, I can actually switch my account here, and you'll see this purchase button for this license, for this NFT, actually renders right here on the screen. And just to show you the publish as well, if I wanted to publish a new version of this, I could totally just go to development Web3 game, and here is that out folder that I have. I have all these static assets. I can drag and drop them, and it'll build my file tree of all these assets right here. I can set a version. I can say 0.0.4, and I could totally publish a new version of this game with one click right to there. And so you'll see that when we go to the profile here, the skin that I'm using for this NFT example is actually my skin that is live published on the game and for this demo. So that's kind of it for it. I'm a bit out of time. If anybody has any questions on any of this, like, feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out to any of us at Valist, jump in the Discord. If you're someone who's interested in creating Web3 games or using any of this tech to create a Web3 game, like, please, 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 I'll build it with you. Like, I love coding. We're always happy to help. But yeah, that's pretty much the long and short of it. Just going to adjust my screen here. But yeah, I mean, maybe actually if we have a couple more minutes, I could totally dive a little deeper into the publish process, but I think we set aside a little bit of time for questions here.
Hi, Zach. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing amazing.
The whole process that you brought today, it was like a class to me when I was in 8th grade, when I was learning Java or Python. And seriously, the way you teach, man, it's like something very detailed, something very understanding. And I love the way you teach. And why not? We should definitely try to publish it right here. I'm with you. Like, let's try publishing it. Let's go ahead.
Oh yeah, totally.
Let's
Let's
go
do
ahead.
let's do a quick publish together. Sorry, let me just throw my screen back up on there. Oh, thank you. Cool. Yeah. So I'm just going to switch back to my main account here. Oops. Awesome. So yeah, let me go back. So this is my account page. This is, if I click that, now I'm on the project page. So as you can see, I published 2 versions before. So I'm going to make this 0.0.3. I'm just going to say my 3rd release. And then I can drag and drop these assets just like before. So now I have all of the next static stuff in there. I have my index.html. So you'll see it's just confirming web game/game. Remember, this is what we used in our token gated example when we generated our IDs. I'm going to click OK on that. And so right now it's taking all the files, it's uploading all of the files right to IPFS. Then we take the files, we use web3.storage behind the scenes. So what that does is it then takes all of your files and it also archives them onto Filecoin, just so that you have a redundant backup. You know, we want to keep things more distributed, the files, and more decentralized. So we have IPFS upload here, but then we also have Filecoin backups. And so what I just signed was a signature for a gasless transaction. So anything on Valist is gasless. Like if you create an account, if you create a project, the platform covers all of it. So you don't have to pay any gas fees. You don't have to hold any crypto. You can publish your game, your free game, for free on here. The only thing that costs gas is if you mint a license to actually like token gate your game. That is not covered by the gas, just because that's minting it to your wallet and stuff, and you're kind of paying the gas for that. But in terms of like publishing or updating a given version, it's completely free. It's just one signature that you do. We use the gas station network. That's another open kind of like decentralized standard for like payment relaying. So if I just refresh here, you will see now my version 3 shows up. And if I click this, we can actually see the metadata with the gateway URL there. And so now if I click launch, and you'll see it actually said no token found at first, because the game loaded and it had to talk to the blockchain for a second to check my token. And then once it said my token was good, it renders the play button and I can play the game. But we just built and statically compiled this game from the ground up. It's hosted on IPFS, and any of the game authentication is completely on the Polygon blockchain. So we just created a completely decentralized game where you can pull your skin directly from the blockchain for your player's skin. Just gonna exit my share here. But yeah, that's essentially the long and short of it.
Awesome. Zach, like the hi, can you hear me? Zach?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So really like we saw how we built it from scratch, the whole thing, right? And I feel really amazing because this is similar to see what I understand Web 2 and Web 3. The understanding is similar somewhere, because if you know code, you can understand Web 3 as well. It is just that the way you do it changes, correct?
Definitely, definitely. And I
Yeah,
think that all we can do is really create primitives so that over time, we can abstract a lot of these things and people hopefully will write less and less code, especially game developers. Game development can be such a complex thing. Like whatever we can do to onboard more users and make the learning easier and easier with easy to use primitives.
definitely, definitely. With this, like I have been seeing there has been a lot of, engagement in the YouTube channel as well as maybe in the discussion room as well, right? But before we enter to, asking questions around what the community has or what the audience has, yeah, tell me this, like we actually discussed about this, before the masterclass actually started, right? Why gamers shouldn't hate NFTs? You mentioned that. Would you want to say something on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, this is something like I'm really passionate about, especially just because I feel like there's kind of like a false narrative going around here. Just to preface this, like, it's obvious, like to all of us, like there's a lot of rug pull projects like around NFTs. There's a lot of scams. I would even say like the majority of a lot of the NFT stuff is, people just trying to scam people out of money and that kind of thing. But there's a big difference between the tool and the technology being the future and how people are actually using it. And when we actually look forward and we apply these things to gamers and we apply these things to games, like it's exactly the same as kind of our discussion at the beginning. It's this value, it's
Right.
this ownership. And we're taking this concept of ownership now and value and we're applying it to these games so that whether it's something, every aspect of games, like all these colleges, all these universities, they're getting involved in esports. Esports is becoming huge. We have,
Oh,
nationwide
yes.
esport competitions. Like now, you,
Online games.
yeah, exactly. Now you don't even need to have a centralized authority host a game tournament. You can have a smart contract that is an open, auditable tournament scoreboard where you can plug any game into it and you can have anybody compete in a tournament in a fair, decentralized manner. So it adds verifiability, it adds fairness, it adds interoperability with things like esports. Then you even just get back to the.
Epic Games.
I'm sorry.
Epic Games was there. Epic Games.
Oh yeah, Epic Games is a great example. Yeah, um,
Right.
and then even just like back to the idea of ownership. It's the idea that now when I play a game, I'm investing like a big part of my life, especially like for a lot of games. Like I do, a 48-hour playthrough of like a major campaign in my favorite game. Like that's a lot of time. That's like something I'm probably pretty passionate about and interested in. And if I unlock a rare item, a great example of this that I really love that inspired Vitalik Buterin even when he was creating Ethereum was that he played World of Warcraft. And World of Warcraft was one of the first games where they had a full in-game marketplace. So users in World of Warcraft, you get certain classes and you create unique items that nobody has ever created in the game before. And sometimes these items can take days, they can take weeks. So you go on all these quests, you get all these items and you make this rare item that only you own and you put hours
Right.
into that. And the ability to have that ownership and be able to trade that to somebody else or be able to even transfer it to another game. Games are already doing that. We're already doing that on one level, but now it's moving the ownership to the protocol level and it's making it interoperable now with any game that integrates to these protocols. Like you don't have to track the ownership inside the game anymore. You don't have to track the inventory inside the game. You have this global state machine that is Ethereum, that is this global database where if I want to look up who owns what rare item, it's a global source of truth that now any game can kind of be a part of.
Awesome, awesome. That sounds very, interesting as well. And as we're talking about different games, why don't you tell me, like, what are some amazing games that you have played on the metaverse?
Yeah, totally. So honestly, one of my favorite games that I just started playing, it's this like little indie web game.
Okay.
It's called Voxium, and it's kind of
Okay.
like a Fortnite. It's like if somebody combined Fortnite and Minecraft together, and so it's like
Oh.
it's a last man standing kind of game where you all get dropped in, and the
Mm-hmm.
last man standing is it's winner takes all. Honestly, I'm a big fan of these like really competitive
Game.
um, games where it's kind of like last man standing, winner takes all. There was this other one, I think it was called like Snook, that I was just
Okay.
playing the other day. It's a Slither.io clone, and it's really
Okay.
cool because the mechanics behind it, the way that it works is that every hour, everybody that wants to play the game, they pay in to play the game. They pay a certain amount of tokens, and it could be like, other classic games where it could be like a little bit to pay in, or it could be a lot, depending if you're like high ranking and you're playing like a big ranked game. And so,
Right.
yeah, with Slither.io, it's basically like Snake. Everybody has a snake, and they're
Mm-hmm.
going around the screen. And so all of the tokens that everyone brings, that everyone pays in, are actually dots on the screen. And so you go around collecting all the tokens and trying to beat everybody else. And whoever is the last person standing with all of the tokens,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest snake at the end of the game, they get to take all the tokens. And so then they get a real world competitive payout from playing that game. And I love the idea of that we can bring
Right.
existing games into the metaverse. Like we can bring Minecraft, we can bring Fortnite, we can bring Apex Legends, Overwatch, like all these
Definitely.
games that people are playing, and it can be a winner take all kind of tournament, or it can be that kind of thing that's directly integrated into these digital systems.
Right, right, definite, definite. Like because of this, what I see is we can move towards a more gamified world. Why is that? Because it somewhere increases the possibility of you understanding yourself better. Because when you're gaming, right, you're at the highest level of understanding everything that's going on. Correct. So here's, the next question that comes in the loop. Like, see, currently I'm seeing a lot of companies moving towards gamification. Okay, like every feature, everything is getting gamified. Like even if you are clicking a like button, or if you are subscribing to something, or if you're even posting content online, right, you're getting paid for that, right? So things like play to earn, learn to earn, walk to earn as well, right? Like
I,
these things have come, so everything is becoming gamified, right? So what do you think? Like, is gamification the core future, or like how does it go?
I actually, as you were even saying that, ed tech and gamifying learning is even one of the first things that came into my mind. I absolutely think it's the future. Like game theory
Right.
is just it's incredible, especially from like
Exactly.
it allows us to using computers and using games. We can even learn skills and do
Exactly.
things like behind the scenes without even knowing it. And suddenly, like you're playing this fun game, you're hacking your brain, and you don't even realize it that you're getting better. And so we can teach chemistry, we can teach physics, we can teach coding, we can teach almost any subject that
Everything.
could do, and they don't even know that they're learning because they're just playing a game and they're just having fun.
Gaming.
Game theory is so amazing, and I think that's even why platforms like Recorum and having these communities where we're all learning and we're all kind of like gamifying it together through a
Right.
community. And then you have NFTs, you have verifiable credentials that you're trying to move to the next level. I'm trying to get the next badge. Like I'm building my portfolio, but it's fun, and I'm doing things with a community that I'm passionate about, and it's that borderline, that line that you have between you have fun, but then you have challenge,
Mm-hmm.
and where that intersects is the ultimate learning, the ultimate kind of flow is where it's the perfect amount of fun, but the perfect amount of challenge.
Understanding and knowledge as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So this comes, like I am very, enthralled and very excited with what has already happened and what has, what we already have discussed, right? But it's time to take some questions from the community as well as from the audience as well, right? So let's go ahead with the first question that we have from the community. Okay. What are the benefits of Web3 gaming?
Oh, easy. Interoperability, ownership, verifiability would just be the biggest three that I would narrow it down to. Yeah.
Verifiable is basically around self-sovereign identity, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's the idea that
Exactly.
everything is on these global state networks, these global state machines, these digital ledgers. There's logs of everything that has happened, all the data that has happened, how the data has changed over time. And then each of
Right.
those changes have a digital signature associated with them for who changed that data and who did what. And so I can take their key and I can physically verify who did what anywhere along the way. So again, even with these like game tournaments and stuff, like having it be as transparent as possible and having all of these interactions where people are competing for money, be at
Right.
owning things and transferring ownership, having all of that be as transparent and verifiable as possible. It enables to a new
Everything.
dependence. Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome, awesome. That sounds perfectly, crisp and direct. Why not we, let's move to the next question. What is your take on Minecraft NFT ban?
Oh, so this is another one that I'm really like, honestly, it's more of a controversial thing right now,
Mhm.
but um, honestly, I don't think they made the right move there, and I think a lot of their main argument that that Microsoft came out with when they just announced this statement a few days ago about the NFT ban on. So basically, they said, you can't have any NFT plugins, you can't have any NFT code anywhere in the plugin store, and any custom maps on any code basically that interacts with Minecraft through Microsoft. They said they're not going to list anything that has that, and they're going to remove anything that has that. And their reason for doing that was because they basically said that it doesn't create an inclusive environment for their players and
Yeah,
for their users. And it's like, what, honestly, when I heard that, I was like, what are you guys talking about? It's like
exactly.
you're already, like, the idea of Minecraft is you already have unique skins. Like, it's a core part of their business model. So they're not only are they already contradicting a core part of their business model, which is based on ownership, the ownership of skins, ownership of custom maps, ownership of a realm that I control where only certain people can come into my metaverse, my mini
Right.
on Microsoft. How is that already any different than, honestly, in my opinion, it's all about control. All of these big companies,
Right.
they want to have their own metaverse. Disney just launched the Disneyverse.
Disney.
Um,
Yeah.
Minecraft, you already kind of have the Microsoft metaverse. Meta, they're making their
Right.
own metaverse, and I don't believe that these centralized metaverses are really the future. I think it's just kind of a power play for these companies
Centralized.
to
Right.
in control, and they're afraid of public blockchains like Ethereum and Polygon and these things because it removes their ownership of everything.
Ownership.
It removes the silos and it keeps it. It's almost like fake decentralized tech. They're using the tech, but they're not about the ethos of it. They're not
Mhm.
have just a centralized marketplace essentially like they have now. And it's like, if you're doing that, you don't even really need blockchain because you might as well
Exactly.
have a database. Like, they already have a skin store. They already have
Right.
these things. But um, I have a big hunch that they're going to change their tune a little bit when they end up coming out with their own Web3 block
Versus.
metaverse. But yeah, it's sad to hear because there's so many awesome projects, even centered around, because Minecraft has such an awesome plugin system and they have such
Mhm.
awesome scripting. I've just, at all these hackathons, you see it constantly. You see all these people building integrations to integrate Minecraft into the metaverse, and it's just really, I think, a missed chance for them right now, because other companies like Sandbox and like Decentraland,
they have taken the throne.
yeah, or even Crypto Voxels is a great example. Just a voxel-based game with NFTs, and they're
Definitely, like somewhere I also am on the same page. It's basically they're disagreeing now because they feel that centralization would go off from their hand. Okay, but I feel like while we make progress with technology, right, we might enter that space where everyone is compatible enough, but they'll still try to keep that fake decentralization on the other hand, right? But okay, that's pretty good as statement as well. Why don't we move towards the next question? Okay, what are the types of assets you can host on IPFS?
Oh, so this is such a good one. Honestly, it gets a little dicey with like web apps and stuff, and the way that you have to build them, and kind of dynamic things. Like, we're still kind of moving towards, people are really used to having these like dynamically built front ends. You have like services like Versal that dynamically build your app and do that kind of thing. And we're seeing it, towards moving more towards like a statically compiled front end like Uniswap, so that it can be distributed in these decentralized ways. And it kind of changes the paradigms for a lot of things. But at the end of the day, I would say really anything and everything. Like the idea behind it, especially at Valist, we take everything from NPM packages. So all the developer packages that people are using. Earlier this year, we scraped NPM. We scraped every latest version of every single package on NPM, and we dumped them onto IPFS so that anybody could access any of the NPM packages on this decentralized network. You have Docker containers. Protocol Labs, the company that created IPFS, they actually even partnered with Netflix about a year and a half ago, and they did this whole huge experiment where they took the BitSwap protocol that underpins IPFS, and they used it to see how fast they could transfer Docker containers between different regions for more performant cloud native applications. So everything from packages to cloud native to any of the artifacts that we use, any of the images that we use. It's basically like having in browsers like Brave that implement IPFS directly. It's basically like having a torrent system like built into your browser. Every time I browse a website that's on IPFS, or anytime that I browse a download page that has downloads for my favorite applications, like anything, even if I load a website and there's an image of a cat on it, as long as it's using IPFS, Brave will even ask me and say, do you want to contribute to pinning this file on IPFS? And I can back up these files. And so in my mind, there's nothing more Web3 than that, is that the idea that I can help host a website that I really like for somebody else just from me using the website. I'm contributing to then sending that website to more people. And this same concept can be applied to anything. It could be applied to media with videos and images on social networks. Like my friends, when I post a image on Facebook, instead of downloading that image from Facebook, they're downloading it right from me. And then that's even limiting the scope of like, they say, the old saying is like, you put something on the internet, it's out there forever.
Right.
With user-centric,
basically.
Yeah. Now we're flipping that narrative on its head with the idea of ownership and the idea of that you have to request the data from me to encrypt my data or decrypt my data. And that's not to say somebody couldn't still copy something. Like people will always be able to screenshot something or try to download it or do whatever, or copy it. But I really feel like, we're really moving the bar forward with removing the power that these companies like Facebook have over our entire lives and over all of our data.
Exactly. That is where, we need to understand that it's a progressive domain. It's not something that can be done in one day, right? So I definitely feel that, Web3, blockchain, and everything around that will take time, but yes, it is definitely some, all people should, work upon and work towards, right? So with that, let's take the next question. Let's take the next question. What is it? Okay, so there's some Tibib, okay, and he or she, they've asked, does it use API? So with this, I assume like what you taught earlier on, the whole development side, okay, does it use API when we, develop a game on Web3,
So
on blockchain?
yeah, so it's kind of one of those like Valist itself. We do have some basic APIs. In this demo that I did, I did not use any APIs. It's all talking directly to the blockchain via the browser client. So it's either pulling the data directly from IPFS or it's pulling the chain data directly from the chain. What I will say about that, there are some really good tools out there like Pocket Network, which are trying to
Mm-hmm.
decentralize like RPC and stuff like that. But the app that I technically built does technically still use some centralized APIs we're using the public Polygon RPC provider. So that's HTTP. That is still a centralized API that's serving block data to me about the chain.
Okay.
It is centralized, but it is still verifiable. The RPC requests that I do and the block data that I pull still includes things like Merkle proofs and digital signatures and things that I can verify the data client side that I am getting. But right now, the best solution for that kind of thing is, you either have to host your own blockchain node with the idea
Okay.
of Valist. You can run the whole Valist front end, the whole Valist stack directly on your own machine with your own Geth node and with your own IPFS. It's just, it's still really expensive to do that because not with IPFS. IPFS, it runs in the browser. You can run it everywhere. But with like Geth and these blockchains, I have to store the whole blockchain a lot of the times to be able to interact with data in a usable way. So we're all still just in Web3 relying on these centralized RPC gateways. And so
Right.
shout out to the Valist team. We've also kind of had side projects where we're kind of working on like in-browser light clients and just things that we can use to remove these centralized gateways. But unfortunately, that's every DApp out there. Like if you're using
Right.
MetaMask, if you're using any of these wallets and talking to them in the way that you are, like you're using a centralized API to do that.
Right. Right, to
But
call that basically that function.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, because see, it's definitely like, for now, all APIs are on the Web2 projects, right? And to move towards Web3, we definitely have to take that step over, Web2. We cannot just jump over it. We have to take that step with them, right? With that, like I see you mentioned about side projects, right? So there were few people in, the comment section, if they asked like, you could provide internships and, if you can cover their travel and cost. They're from Ethiopia and, they would love to spend time with you and work with you. That's what they're saying. So anything around that, would you like to say? Like anyone who wants to work with you, something around that?
yeah, absolutely. Personally, I would love to work with them. Please definitely reach out to us. Uh, Contact or hello@valist.io. Jump in our Discord, like engage in the community. We're always looking for talented developers and people to be a part of this kind of movement and a part of this like ecosystem and everything that we're trying to do. We're trying to build with as many people as we can. So please, like anybody out there that you're watching this, please reach out. There's definitely plenty of opportunities available. Even just a lot of the hackathons we go to and a lot of the people in our community that at the end of the day we could connect you with and really just work on some really crazy projects and stuff together.
Awesome, awesome. So to answer that question from, Recurrum side as well, we definitely have a lot of companies here at this event who are hiring and, who are ready to give you opportunities out there. Let it be internships, remote work, and even full-time jobs. Okay. So definitely look out that on the Recurrum website. So again, if you're streaming it from any other platform, come to Recurrum website, log into the event, and you'll see many companies over there and you can directly apply. But let's move ahead to the last question of today from the Recurrum community, right? Which is the best stack for game development in Web3? Let's go
Ah,
there.
this is such a tough one. Honestly, I would say, this is such a good question. I would just say that my answer here would be the same as a lot of things. I think it's not necessarily a one size fits all kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, for a web game DApp stack, I would recommend kind of exactly what I used. If you're building a simple
Right.
like 2D web game, Phaser.js, really awesome HTML5 canvas game library. Next.js is used almost by like every DApp I see now. They're always using Next.js. Rainbow Kit and WagMe are great ways to connect to your wallet and connect to the chain. Um, but honestly, if you're really, really trying to build a good game, like a great game, you can't beat Unity still. I think, it's the most used game engine. It lets you compile cross-platform to Android, iOS, or web.
Right.
So the same web game that you could create in Phaser, you could create it in Unity. It's just going to be a little bit harder. There's going to be a little bit more you're going to have to learn. Unity uses C sharp, so not as many people quite know C sharp. But if you're a game developer and you're already doing Unity, I would say stick with Unity, make a really crazy game in Unity. And then even if you check out our Valist docs, we have some amazing links. There are some amazing SDKs out there. There's the Morales Gaming SDK. There's the ChainSafe Gaming SDK. There's a million other companies right now that are really creating these SDKs and these primitives for metaverse gaming, and almost all of them support Unity token gating and in-game contracts and that kind of stuff. But I would say, yeah, if you're a novice and you just want to like learn the basics of game design, JavaScript and Phaser are a great place to start. You can write some basic JavaScript. You can get a basic game going in an hour.
Awesome, awesome. That's really amazing, right? Like definitely anyone who's listening to this, watching this right now live, okay, please do, like, this is a humble request from my side. Jump onto the Wallace servers, okay, go to the Discord channel, reach out to them. They're really developing something really great out here, okay, and like we already discussed, it's all about collaboration. It's all about collaboration, togetherness, and working for a better better products, better innovation, better technology, right? So definitely whoever's trying to build something new and amazing, I think Zach will definitely be someone who will push you harder to become one like himself, right? Always pushing harder, becoming a mentor to become great, right? Great. I guess today was great. Like I really felt like something new I learned today. Okay, something amazing that came up. Related to even the coding part, even token gating a basic 2D game and all. Right. What do you tell me? Like how was your experience? How did you feel about the whole session that we had today?
It was amazing. I love the platform. I love the community. I love everything about what you guys are trying to do, whether it's from the gamification of ed tech and learning together through the community. I love the idea of we can earn badges and we can earn NFTs through Recorum. I'm so
Right.
proud of it. Shout out to Recorum. Definitely, everybody, please be active in the community. Like, this is the beginning of something
Definitely.
big, something great here. And I just
Even
even,
thank you so much.
yeah, I was going to say thank you so much for having me.
We are very thankful to to bring you on board because see, somewhere Web3 requires a lot of education right now. Like everyone who's coming here is a noob basically. They're trying to learn more and more, and that is what we need. Building communities is all about education from the bottom level. And somewhere I feel we, like Rekuram and you, Wallace, we should do more such, episodes around this. Maybe some more are coming, in the coming months, right? So we should definitely do more around this and help educate together, and build this community. Awesome.
Totally. Yeah, and I can't wait.
Totally. Any last comments, Zach? Like anything? Any last comments to the community, to the people? Something you believe in, something you would want everyone to learn about?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I definitely got to shill, Valist one more time. Check us out at Valist. Again, we're really trying to do some really big stuff right now. Everybody is putting so much effort into decentralizing everything, and then we're re-centralizing it all at the download pages. You're downloading your games from Steam. You're downloading them from the App Store, from Google, from all these centralized places. Like, you don't want to download your decentralized node software or your wallet from Microsoft. Like, you want to get it from Ipfs. You want to get it from the centralized networks that we're building. And then just to anybody out there that's building, please, like, keep at it. I know it can be hard. I know it can be challenging, especially in Web3. Like, everything is changing so fast, but being a part of, DAOs and communities and projects like Recorum, like, that's the biggest thing. Like, especially if you're looking for a Web3 job, like, go to hackathons, go join a DAO, like, keep building, and you'll meet the right people and you'll do the right things. And everybody out there, you can all be a part of just like changing the world and creating the next internet, because none of this is going anywhere and it's here to stay. So just keep building.
Definitely, and one of the major communities that's running is Valist and Recordum together. Please join. Log on to both of us, both the communities. We are here to build together, and let's go in with that, right? Awesome. It was great having you here, Zach, today. It was great having you here. It's my pleasure that I hosted you today, and it was a great learning experience, like I said, right? Thank you for just coming in and chipping in with your knowledge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you.
So amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zach. Bye
Thanks.
bye. Awesome. So somewhere I feel today was a periodic learning curve for me, where I actually started learning coding when I was in eighth grade, and gradually coding is something which fascinates you. And today I actually got fascinated by and very amused by what Zach taught today. And I'm sure all of you had fun and an enlightening experience today at today's masterclass. And it is great to see participation from all around the globe, right? From people who are helping to build together and grow together a new internet, like Zach said. This event is obviously would not have been possible without the engagement that you guys brought. And we at Requiem are rigorously every day trying to work harder to build this community. Before we end towards the final comments, firstly a big shout out to Valist and the team who have been continuously working with us to put out such great content and such great education based um, sessions for all of you guys who have been attending sessions with us in the past 1 month. And we have many more coming up to provide you with immense knowledge on different variations. Like there is one which will be around gamification and how a person, a company basically, or any game company can understand their economics, and many more that are coming around DAOs and even governance, right? We would also like to, acknowledge our sponsors for today, which are Uniform, which who are also hiring at this event. We have 200, like 80 plus companies with more than 200 plus, job opportunities coming across from around the world, remote internships, full-time opportunities, everything available at this event. Do not worry if you have missed the chance to view this event live, but you can also view this event for the whole week starting today. So this event would be live for 1 week on the Requiem website. and you can definitely apply for all kinds of opportunities that are being there. Before I move to the last statement, I'd like to remind all of you again that we are providing NFT minted certificates to all of you who are attending this event from the beginning to the end. And how can you achieve, claim that? It's simple. Log on to the Rec Room website, come to the discussion room, drop your wallet addresses, and you can mint your NFTs from there. A POAP will be sent to you very soon for all the events that you have attended. Thank you so much, everyone. Before I log off, there have been many questions around how to basically claim an NFT and how to build a wallet first. So let's go as simple as that. With the simplest start, we'll use a MetaMask. Basically, we'll try to create an NFT account on a MetaMask wallet. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen in just a moment. Just give me a second. Yes, I hope my screen's visible. Right, my screen's visible. Okay, so this is MetaMask. Okay, it's one of the most used projects in the blockchain, which will help you to create a wallet of your own through which you can mint the NFTs that we are providing. Right. So whatever browser that you're using, as soon as you go to MetaMask, okay, please remember, do only go to metamask.io. There are many other websites who are phishing, or bringing fake web addresses. So please do not enter those websites. Please keep in mind metamask.io is the correct name and the correct web address. Go to that website. There is a link here where simply download for Brave. I'm using a Brave browser, so download for Brave. Directly do that. They'll take you to an extension which you can add from basically the Chrome web store or the Brave web store, whatever you're using. I already have an account, so that's why it shows for me remove from Brave. But I'll show you how it works. So in the extensions panel, you have MetaMask here. So MetaMask will be available here on your extensions panel. As soon as you click that, okay, you will, yeah, as soon as you click that, you will know how to basically create a wallet of your own and mint NFT that we are providing. I hope you had a very fun and a big learning experience with us today, and we hope to host you guys soon with more better conversations. Do let us know whom we should bring next on the speaker panel or as a host, and we would definitely try to bring them on board and have a conversation around those topics as well. Thank you so much for having me here. I am Laksh Mittal signing off.